All right, shall I let him in?
Yeah. Morning, everyone. Welcome to our Goleta monthly community engagement regional action plan. We have a normal regional action plan every week, but we tried to take one of those regional action plans to make it more community engaged, to let the overall Goleta region know what's going on, and also kind of take input on how homelessness is affecting you. So we're just going to wait a couple of minutes to let everyone on, and then we'll get started. Happy Monday. And I don't know if you hear my fun party music in the background, but I'm at a local coffee shop today, so my apologies. We'll just one more minute, and then we'll start at 9:03. All right, thanks everyone for joining us this morning. The theory behind the regional action plan is that we want to kind of work neighborhood by neighborhood. We know that every neighborhood is affected by homelessness in some way. And we know that there are similarities and there are differences in every neighborhood. This regional action plan is basically an opportunity for you to get to know some of the city staff and service providers that are working on the issue. So I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, and then it's an opportunity for you to ask questions using the chat or by raising your hand related to any of the work that the city, that SBAC, that CityNet Behavioral Wellness are taking on behalf of trying to reduce homelessness across the board. So we can update you on the work that's been happening related to encampments, related to CityNet kind of strategic cloud-based outreach. So first of all, introduce myself. My name is Jeff Schaefer. I'm the director of SBAC. We do collective impact, so we are a neutral backbone organization, really to try to reduce homelessness, both helping individuals and families that are experiencing homelessness and also the local community. So we are contracted with the city of Goleta to run these meetings and to assist people like Chuck or the city or CityNet or you as things come up. But I'm going to turn over to you, and then we're just going to start. We're kind of allowing the city staff to introduce themselves and the service providers, and then we'll go to the neighborhood residents and business community partners and let you introduce yourself as well. So Landon, I'll go to you, and then you could choose someone from city staff.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jaime Valdez, Director of Neighborhood Services. Thanks for joining us this Monday. I'll turn it over to Shanna Dawson.
Hi, I'm Shanna Dawson. I'm also in Neighborhood Services, and I'm a management analyst. And we'll go to George.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm George Thompson. I'm the city's Parks and Open Space Manager. I oversee the daily maintenance of about 500 acres of public land. And then in terms of my involvement with this group, I oversee abandoned encampment cleanup on public property.
Maybe we'll go to Chuck.
Hi, everybody. My name's Chuck Flax. I'm an independent consultant working with the city of Goleta, and I sort of see my role as maybe an air traffic controller to some extent, hence the headphones. But no, I'm trying to bring together all the different stakeholders that I can to address the problem of homelessness in Goleta. And just so you know, if you're new to this, that Goleta is incredibly well-resourced and well-organized to try to address the problem, with lots of exciting things coming down the pike. We have an opportunity, I think, to effectively end homelessness in the city of Goleta, at least keep it at what they call functional zero in the next couple of years. So I think this is an exciting time, and I'm eager to get going.
Thank you, Chuck. Maybe we'll go to, let's go to Ed or to Josh.
Hey, Jeff. Yeah, I'm not seeing Ed on yet, but I'm sure he'll be hopping on shortly. I'm Josh Lantier. I'm with CityNet. I'm a case manager. My partner Ed and I do outreach in the Goleta area and try to get people connected to housing opportunities long term.
Now I see Ed and I see Emily on as well. Ed, if you want to introduce yourself, and then if Emily is on, she can as well.
Okay. Ed Wesson, CityNet Outreach, Goleta, along with my partner, Josh Land here.
Hey guys, sorry I'm not on camera today. My name is Emily Kova. I'm the program manager for Santa Barbara County, and any kind of requests or referrals to my case managers would be emailed to me. I will put my email in the chat box.
And then Dan, I'm sorry, I forgot to allow you to introduce yourself as well.
Hey everyone, good morning. Dan Rowell, Environmental Specialist in Public Works. Just here to help monitor this conversation around solid waste and stormwater pollution issues. Thanks for having me.
And I know we have Kristen from the chamber and Dustin, both of you, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm Kristen Miller, President and CEO of the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce. And I've been glad to have Dustin on most of these calls, I think, in the past, and wanted to sit in today as well.
Hi, I'm Dustin Wyseth with the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce, Public Policy Manager. Glad to be here.
Randy, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Well, thanks for including me. My name is Randy Brown. I'm the Director of Facilities and Workplace Services here at a business in Goleta called Appfolio Inc. We have a large campus, if you will, here right off Castilian Drive and Goleta, and we've had some firsthand experience with the rising homeless encampments, and just here to provide a perspective or what we've witnessed and how it's affected our business. And what we can do to kind of solve this and do best to prevent furthering. So thanks for including me.
Thanks, Randy, and we'll have some time in a couple of minutes for you to kind of go into more detail on what you're experiencing. Erica, I don't know if you wanted to introduce yourself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Sparks, the Facilities Coordinator for the Tobes Group for the Commercial Properties Department. Also born and raised in Goleta, so here for all the above reasons to really help this issue and understand it, really try to understand everything.
Thank you so much, Erica, for joining us today. And I'm not sure who's on the iPhone.
It's me, Lupe Valdez. Sorry about that.
Hi, Lupe.
I tried to join you on my regular computer, but it knocked me out. That's okay. It's just Monday. But Lupe Valdez with Union Pacific Railroad. Good morning to all of you. I'm the Senior Director of Public Affairs. Apologize, I've been kind of missing in action here, but we've been dealing with some issues with theft, cargo theft that kind of sucked me in for the month of January and February. So I'm back on.
Yeah, really good to have you. And thank you for your partnership with us. Really valuable to have you on the call, and our coordinated efforts. Can't do this without you, so thank you. I think, have I missed anyone?
I think you got everyone, Jeff. I just don't see anybody here from Caltrans. Usually we've had some participation from them, but they may be busy gearing up for some cleanings that are going around this time this month.
I mean, did you want to, I thought what I'd first do is just kind of allow the city and CityNet to kind of describe their local efforts, just so the community understands what is being put in place and what is in place. And then I can open the door for kind of members to talk about how homelessness is impacting them. And before that, I'll go through some ground rules before we start sharing.
Sure, I'll just start very briefly, and Chuck or Shanna can correct me if I'm wrong, but hopefully I'm not. So, you know, homelessness in general, I would say maybe 2 years ago was not nearly on the same level that we're seeing, you know, even recently as 6 months and now. So the city's been taking some steps to try to shore up this issue. Predominantly in the past, it's been limited to Caltrans and UPRR with very limited involvement by the city. On occasion, we would have, you know, a random person camping in a city park or maybe up on the mesa. And over time, especially with COVID and some of the mandates issued by the state about and CDC guidelines about not moving people, it's just really proliferated a lot more, at least more visibly. And so the city's been kind of wrestling with what it can do with certain federal case law versus what's humane versus what's works well for businesses and residents. So I'll just flat out say it's not easy, and no one thinks it is. Everyone's battling the same issue up and down the state. So part of what we did was we brought on Chuck, who has a vast knowledge and experience over the years to kind of help guide us and talk to our council and our standing committees. And one thing that we really saw that was prominent during the discussions, and a lot of the complaints we've gotten have been largely based on the large encampments along the UPRR Caltrans corridor, which I'm sure many of you have seen. There's always been kind of an issue with panhandling that's been kind of a hard, like whack-a-mole issue to kind of address. And that's on private property. So it makes it really hard for the city to enforce. We do have the ability, and Ben Sandu, who's usually here on the calls, our community resource deputy, he's actually in court today, testifying. He's not the one being in trouble, but he typically deals with a lot of these complaints and issues with private businesses and private ownership. So essentially the way it boils down to is if it's private property, it's really incumbent upon the private property owners to contact the sheriff's office, have the individual removed for trespassing or any kind of other violation. It gets really tricky when it's the city's property or right away. One of the main decisions has led to the fact that we're supposed to provide housing options. And as you all know, housing is incredibly expensive and very rare in terms of the type of housing that we could use for these types of individuals. So one thing we did was kind of a bridge housing program with CityNet to basically have hotels available at the Super 8 motel hotel rooms. And essentially, because the big fear was and the big emphasis was on encampments and fear of fires or, basically the fires was front and center fear, but also kind of the aesthetics of it. And so the focus has been largely on clearing some of these encampments and making sure that they're safe. And we're trying to help these individuals find either reconnect with family or get services and or possibly even get housing. I think we've had a mixed result. I think we've done some things that have been fairly good. We obviously don't have enough housing on the spot to be able to provide it to everybody. But I think CityNet's been doing a great job outreach-wise. Our partners at the county have also been trying to help. So it's an all-on-board kind of approach. It's a regional problem. Homeless individuals individuals experiencing homelessness. Honestly, I don't think they care if they're in the city of Goleta or the city of Santa Barbara or the county of Santa Barbara or airport property. It's just they're not looking at this from a city limits type of thing, which, you know, unfortunately city people do. But there's a lot of fluidity to the populations and how they move about. It may not be a long distance, but they could travel 3 jurisdictions in about a mile. So that makes it tough. We've had some success placing people at Hedges House of Hope. And when I say we, I mean CityNet. I'll give credit where credit's due, but really it really is an individual issue every time something comes up. We have to see where these individuals are, what they might need, what we might be able to provide them, and then, you know, constantly following up. And so far the city's committed through its CityNet contract over $500,000 towards that. It may sound like a ton of money, but for perspective, I think the city of Santa Barbara spent $3 million on the Rose Garden Inn, and that lasted, I know they just finished up, I think last month, or maybe a couple weeks ago. So it's a very expensive, very labor intensive, very service intensive approach, but it's the kind of thing that requires that when you're dealing with individuals. So what we're looking forward going into next year and the following years is where can we make those impacts and where is the real need? Our council has kind of tasked the Homeless Issues Committee with where would be the best use of these resources. You know, you have these safe parking programs, you can have, you know, outreach services. We are working with the County Housing Authority on their Super 8 long-term permanent housing and supportive services hotel. I mean, that's $600,000. So the city's dropped at least $1 million over the past, you know, or at least committed $1 million over the past, you know, maybe 6 months, maybe even a little bit less. So needless to say, I just wanted to kind of demonstrate how serious this issue is for the city. Like I said in the beginning, 2 years ago, we didn't have line items for homelessness. We had a couple of grants here and there to some local service providers, but this has obviously taken on a different stature over time. We've been pushing with UPRR and Caltrans, and we know they have a ton of work to do. So Lupe, thank you for joining the call. It's up and down the state. We just recently got notified that as part of a joint application that we supported with the county, $2.5 million will be coming to the county for the encampment response program. So that whole thing is designed at working together, you know, UPRR, Caltrans, the county, the cities, to try to house these individuals and to get them out of these encampments. They're dangerous. We've had one individual who was, you know, maybe 25 feet from a residence, and it really, really bothered the homeowner, and we can see why. But also too, you know, they understood that it's not just, you know, get rid of these people, because eventually these people will go to another location, and rather than kind of playing this whack-a-mole game, we're really trying to get them integrated, get them the services they need, the documents they need, because unfortunately, that's kind of what's required. And so the more we can do up front to try to help that, I think in the longer run, we have a better shot of actually helping individuals rather than making it so uncomfortable that they just decide to leave. And that's not really what success is in our minds. We're really trying to actually deliver some services to them and help them get on their feet, find their families, find friends, and get them off the streets. So anyways, that was a long-winded recap of what we've been trying to do. I know it's probably never enough. And honestly, I think if folks saw the number of complaints we get, you'd be surprised. You know, it varies. Sometimes it's maybe 6 one week, sometimes it's 20, right? And so a lot of times it may be duplicative in terms of the same individuals. But what I've learned, or at least what I've experienced recently, has just been kind of a different, you know, understanding of the issue. We did the point in time count on Wednesday last week. It was really eye-opening. I've been to some of the encampments in person with Deputy Sandu. It's different to see something from a car as you drive by. It's different to walk through a campment, you know, and get into a tent and meet individuals. So I think hopefully one thing that people will take away is that these are people, right? And it doesn't make it okay that there's trash and rubbish and danger, but at the same time, they are people. So I've had 2 cups of coffee, so I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. I think you covered it really well. Before I throw it over to either Chuck or Shannon to see if there's any additions, could you briefly explain kind of the process if a complaint is sent to the city who does it go to first, and then how does it get to CityNet potentially, those kind of things?
Yeah, we've been trying to drive the complaints, the calls, the emails to our, what we call City Assist. It's kind of a customer relations management software that we've had for years. That tends to work better for like potholes or like a downed tree. When people see a homeless individual somewhere where they weren't expecting, they tend to just call the city or email the city directly outside of that system, or call a council member or email the city manager. So the inputs are actually all over the place. So what we've been trying to do is force that through to our City Assist so we can catalog it, right, and track it, make sure it's being responded to. And the gentleman wearing the air traffic controller headphones is the one that's in helping to distribute that. So things that are on private property, he tries to work with Deputy Sandu and give him the basic information, like, and have Deputy Sandu work directly with the private property owner. Those are a little bit easier from our perspective, maybe not for Mr. Brown's or for Ms. Sparks, but it's hard for us to enforce something on private property unless a crime's actually being committed and the sheriff officer can actually be there. Usually there's these letters of authority that allow Deputy Sandu to go and kind of proactively walk around. So that's one pathway. The other one really is exchanging information just among the different service providers. If Josh or Ed is getting a lot of information, they may relay it directly to Chuck, they may relay it to Emily, Emily might relay it back to Shanna, Chuck. It's kind of however it gets to us, we try to process it. It'd be nice and very overly bureaucratic if we had just one system and everything went perfectly well, but the reality is that's not how people think, and that's probably not how I would think. I'd just be like, just get it done, move on it. So that's been the approach. I think it's getting better. I think people like getting some sort of a response. And I think it's kind of one of those things that we don't know anything unless someone tells us something, right? And so for George, I think he mentioned it's 500 acres. I mean, yes, he walks a lot and, he has people that help him, but that's a ton of space to look after. So we depend on people emailing George and, saying, hey, this coordinate here by this, landmark. And then he can relay that to Chuck. And, if it's on public property, we take one path. If it's private property, it's another. So it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of all hands on deck, however the information comes to us. Dan has mentioned he's more focused on, the creeks and watershed and what that could mean if we have certain types of waste and rubbish and stuff like that. So we kind of have to look at it individually and then geographically as where things are. We also, like I said earlier, the overlap between the county unincorporated. I mean, it sometimes turns into a mess, right? It could be like underneath a bridge that's controlled by the county flood control district, but it's a Caltrans bridge. On one side, it's the city. On the other side, it's the county. And maybe somehow it's close to the airport. And you just kind of look at it and you're just like, oh my gosh, right? Like who's responsible? And in large part, we've kind of taken the approach of like, it kind of doesn't matter who's responsible because at the end of the day, these people need services. So the good thing is CityNet operates in the county unincorporated area. They operate in the city of Santa Barbara and in the city of Goleta. So from that perspective, that continuity of services is, somewhat easier to do than if we had three separate contractors. Where it gets tricky is, with folks like Caltrans and UPRR, they have a huge amount of area to cover and they don't necessarily can drop everything and go to one location, and they have their tiers of what they think is most important and how they address them. And so for us, while it may be the most important thing in the world, it may not reach that level for Caltrans, for example. So it's kind of Chuck's job to convince, twist, plead, encourage, lobby everybody to kind of participate, and he's done a great job of getting people to the table that not because they didn't want to be, but just because of their overextended. I think we've moved further than we have in the past, and in reality, we're still new to this. I don't think anyone is like a seasoned pro. So we're taking some lessons from the city of Santa Barbara. They have MOUs with UPRR. The next step is for us to get something similar, hopefully. And whether that's with us or the county or together. all we need is basically to have the ability to just pick up a phone and email somebody and know we're going to get a response. And that's kind of what we're working towards.
Thank you. I mean, Chuck or Shannon, anything to add? I just put a note in the chat that I'll talk with Landon this week about creating the Goleta homelessness response directory, working with the city of Santa Barbara to kind of document, and with partners like Behavioral Wellness and CityNet and all those partners about who to contact and what to expect. Chuck, anything to add, or Shannon?
Well, I would just encourage you, Jeff, to allow Randy and Dustin and Kristen and Erica a chance to weigh in here, given that this once a month. I mean, Jaime did a really good job of laying out Goleta's response. It's an incredibly, given the size of Goleta, it's an incredibly comprehensive program and response. And the other exciting piece that he's kind of underplayed was the amount of housing that's actually getting developed. I mean, I guess part of it is that we'll see it when it happens, but we've got the Super 8 motel coming. We've got Heritage Ridge, potentially about 150 units of new housing, which is why I say, the population will have opportunities in Goleta that they haven't had ever. So.
And then I would just add one more thing, Jeff, real quick before folks from the chamber, and we really want to hear from you, is you obviously know, Kristen and Dustin and others, that probably the number one issue is housing and the affordability of housing. And this hits at every single level, and especially on the lower income levels. So I think Chuck shared kind of one of the main facets of dealing with homelessness is that if you have basically 0% vacancy, which is kind of what we have on the South Coast, maybe 1% at any given time, it creates so much pressure on the housing stock that it really forces a lot of people to maybe start by living in their homes and then living in their cars, and then overwhelming shelters and maybe some temporary housing. And maybe those individuals sometimes end up, literally on the streets outside of the cars or in the cars for years and years and years. And so that's kind of the other thing we don't necessarily always think of immediately. Obviously, for like the I'll say market rate, right? For people who are working and trying to rent a house or rent an apartment, it's tough out there for them. And so imagine if you're on the lower side of things, it's kind of like trying to get blood out of a rock. It just doesn't happen. So that creates the extra pressure. I mean, we all know we live in a very attractive, sought after community and area, but it also creates that pressure on housing that's really almost impossible to deal with. No one's gotten a good answer, and everyone's been talking about it for decades about what we're doing to make it more affordable. Well, if you think that's an issue for individuals who are working in fairly well-paid jobs, and they have to commute, I mean, how do you expect someone on the lower end to really be able to find a place or be stable? So that's kind of another pressure that exists that's kind of maybe not always obvious.
And Chuck, thanks, Jaime, for that. You're right on about what you shared about our need for housing and where people are going to go, even as we have seen that and other partners having clients. So I do want to turn it over to Randy, to Erica, if anyone related to the chamber wants to talk about how homelessness is affecting the community. First, I guess I want to go through a few ground rules before we start. And the reason why we use terminology like people experiencing homelessness, even though it takes us longer to say people experiencing homelessness and not transients or homeless individuals, is because we're trying to use terms that are dignifying for the population we're trying to serve. So for the most part, we encourage everyone to use dignifying language when talking about people who are trying to help, even though they may be causing some issues around business or residency. We still want to use language like that. The second thing is we try to lean away from, and I don't think anyone on this call is going to use this language, but I just have to do it because sometimes it does pop up on calls. We don't want to use, and we don't want to share any personal information on this call or specific names on this call. There are other ways to do that, and we can talk about that at the end of the call. We also kind of move away from, there have been calls where people are called crazy or things like that. And again, we want to use language such as people experiencing mental health challenges, just dignifying talk. This is a communal effort. As we hear people on the call, I really appreciate everyone being on the same page that we are. We all each one of us is a part of the puzzle to try to bring about a picture where there's no homelessness in Goleta. I mean, that's what we're trying to complete. And everyone on this call is a valuable partner in making that happen, no matter how big or how small. So I'm going to open it up now. We have a half hour just to kind of talk about what the impacts are locally, anything specific you want to share. And then toward the end, we can talk about how we might be able to remedy some of these situations with service providers on the call. So Randy, if you want to start us off, and then if anyone else wants to join in, let's go for it.
I drew the short straw. I get to go first, huh? Well, okay. Thanks again for including me. I also, Erica, grew up in Santa Barbara, so I live in the city of Goleta now. But this is my home, and so I have a different, unique perspective in what some of the other individuals have shared today, as far as just what we've seen evolve over the course of the last few years. It is saddened to see, and we've got to work together to come up with some solutions. But I've spoken to a handful of people on this call today, so it's great to put a face to the name, and just perspective from me and what I do for this company. We have close to 850 employees that actually are employed by Appfolio in the city of Santa Barbara, that report to this office. This is obviously pre-COVID numbers. Since then, we've had some individuals that have resigned and moved on, and then when we hired their role, it may be remote. But our best guess is that we're at about 850 people stationed and assigned to Santa Barbara and in Goleta, specifically where our headquarters is. And one of my sole responsibilities is to get individuals back to return into the office and collaborate again with each other. As much as I love to do Zoom and we embrace technology, in the end, we are a technology company. Sometimes these encounters and these meetings, while can be productive remote, our philosophy is that we do embrace the in-person experience, and we want to get individuals to network and connect with one another in person again. And so one of my main roles is to do what's, think outside the box and try to entice people to return to the office. Of course, now when they feel safe and with safety in mind, and obviously you talk about health and the pandemic, and then also safe in the sense that they feel that they're safe at the workplace and that there's no criminal activities occurring in and around the surrounding areas. So we've unfortunately experienced some of that, as a lot of people probably have over the last few years. And, some of them could be attested to individuals experiencing homelessness, or it could be just other criminal activities that may occur. But I have taken the advice of many on the call here and have worked with Deputy Sandu, since we do have private property here that extends within. There's a creek on our proper that runs through portions of our property, and then also there's a nice trail, manicured trail that our organization keeps up for our employees to walk and love the outdoors of beautiful Santa Barbara that we live in. But over the course of the last few years, we've experienced some individuals experiencing homelessness, either residing on our property, or just I don't know, just trespassing in general. And so we do have an authority letter now with the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department, and Deputy Sandu has been a great resource for us. Like I said, I've talked to several of you, Chuck Flax and George Thompson. You all have been very helpful as far as giving us information. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to thank you. One of the larger encampments that have grown in the past several months, actually, just this morning, I did a little recon before this call, what has been fully cleaned up thanks to our neighboring tenants at the HOA of Village Los Carneros, because it was more on their property than our property. And they had contracted a team to come and clean it up. And as I did my little trail recon today, I was I know that Sandu came and gave some people, some of the individuals experiencing homelessness, some options. And also, I think a few of the CityNet folks have been on the back trail and spoken to these individuals as well, and given them options. So I'm hoping that worked, and gotten them the resources that they've needed. And then what concerns business owners like ourselves is just kind of some of the debris that was left behind, that like we talked about, as far as like fire starters or things that could cause a fire, or even some of the items that we saw back there firsthand. Jaime, I saw that you had mentioned earlier about walking the encampment yourself. I did that with Sandu and a few other members, and yeah, they are humans, and they do need help, like you mentioned, but some of the debris and things that are behind are a little troubling, even for people like Dan, I believe, who oversees some of the creeks and stuff, and the debris that may fall into that waterways. But anyways, I've rambled. I've had 2 cups of coffee too, so I think my experiences have been shared here. And if there's any other questions, I think Jeff may sent me a message there. I'm happy to discuss more, but I really appreciate being connected with you folks. I've added a few of you on LinkedIn so that if we can communicate that way, that'd be great. And yeah, I'll join these as frequently as I can, just to provide another experience, if that's helpful.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks for sharing what you're experiencing. I want to thank the team for already being out there. Before we move on to kind of like city response or potentially CityNet, I wanted to see if Erica had anything to share, or Kristen or Dustin.
I'm happy to Mr. Brown, thanks for being patient. As you can tell, it's hard because, like I said, there's the HOA owns part of that area. Part of it is, abuts your the property that Appfolio controls, and even while we're always being respectful of people experiencing homelessness, it doesn't mean it can be a free-for-all. So I hope that doesn't come across as like we're basically turning a blind eye or just won't engage. We have to. Things can be very unsettling that you come across in an encampment. So I just want you to know that we don't just see it as like, oh, they can do no wrong kind of thing, where we actually say, if they're doing something illegal, they're doing something that is dangerous, obviously that warrants an appropriate response. So hopefully that comes across in this meeting and then in any interactions you've had with the city.
Before I move on to maybe, I heard City that's been out there, so I want to throw it over to them in a second if there's not another, no one else has anything to share related to just community concerns. Erica?
Yeah, I was just going to touch, Randy, very similar situation for us at the Tobes Group. We manage and own the, for those that don't know, the Carryall Shopping Center. And on one side of the shopping center is one of our residential communities, which we also manage and run. So we definitely run into a lot of different issues in terms of communication, as Jaime was explaining. And I see it coming together a lot more, and I appreciate that, all that hard work, because I know how that can be when you're starting with a lot of new stuff and a lot more new stuff with COVID, and then trying to go back to a different new normal. So I appreciate everyone's efforts. It's been interesting, and like I said, really helps. I know our security foot patrol has really been helping a lot with that too. They've been getting really busy, and they help a lot with it. I know with Deputy Sandu, that's a really good resource. So really, really interesting processes going on, though, I see with Caltrans, Union Pacific, private properties, all that fun stuff. So it's a learning experience, I have to say. It's definitely keeping us all busy. We have had a lot of vacant spaces, and then when people are starting to move in, those are some of the issues that we've been seeing with people experiencing homelessness, that it's so new for them, it's so new for us. And we really like to know how we can help. So definitely any resources that we can get our hands on, we are all about it, definitely. So thank you everyone for everyone's help and support.
Thank you, Eric. Can you,
Jeff, you're breaking up a little bit.
Frozen.
ask
Jeff, you may want to turn off your video.
Chat for myself to kind of describe. Can anyone hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yep.
Wondering, Erica, if you could describe kind of maybe times and days that are more impacted than others.
Definitely. It's kind of both. I mean, it's kind of both because we hear from tenants really early in the early morning hours, which kind of seems that happens in things that are happening in the middle of the night. We do see some stuff in the afternoon, but I feel like more the activity that is happening and actually is more so on the side where the freeway is of Cal Real Shopping Center, like where the Trader Joe's area is, because there's that freeway there too. So there's, and everyone knows that encampment area that's been in those areas too. So frequently on that side, and a lot more in the early morning hours. And that's just for our property. I can't speak. We don't own the Albertsons part, the CVS Albertsons part, so I can't speak to that. But I do know that there is activity over there. But it's more frequent on that side and more so early morning, I believe.
You will pop your email in the chat. I will follow up with you and Randy on kind of site visits. We usually do a site visit every month as well, and we'll try to set those up. And I'm asking about times because I can go out either in early morning or later evening times. I just went out last week to the Hilton in Santa Barbara from 8 to 10 p.m. So I can also see kind of off-hour times if it's more impacted.
That would be great, definitely. And I can confirm a bit more time too from our superintendent. So I appreciate that.
Landon, I'm signing you up.
Yes,
I want to throw it over to either Josh or Emily or Ed just to talk about City Net. Sounds like you've been at Appfolio. I don't know if you've been in the area of that Erica is describing, and maybe get your feedback on how City Net acts and kind of how you can respond.
Yeah, so Ed and I do outreach throughout Goleta. We've definitely been to the Appfolio area. I know we had a couple clients there. I'm not sure what Erica exactly where she meant, but I know that we've been in that area, in the Cayo Real area for sure. There's encampments all along the freeway that we visit pretty regularly. And then especially when they're scheduled for clearings, we try to go and interact with the individuals experiencing homelessness and see if we can provide any shelter options for them that they weren't aware of, or the motel rooms that are now becoming available. We've been out to the Elwood Mesa area a few times, as well as the Goleta Beach area. So we're happy to assist with any outreach contacts that you'd like us to make, or any areas in particular that need more outreach.
Yeah. And then Erica, I think one of the places you were talking about along Cayo Real, the biggest encampment, which really kind of set this whole off, was there was a fire by Maravilla. I think it was about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago. That one became super scary, just visually, but then also proximity wise to Maravilla. They're very vocal about the camp, and we tried, and finally were able to get Caltrans to clean it up. I want to say it was November of last year, maybe around that time, December. I may be wrong, but it's managed to still stay clear. The issue is obviously that individuals that were staying there have either moved on or stayed in the area, but in different locations. And so unfortunately, one of the biggest, easiest places to be is kind of under the freeway in that passageway from the northern part of Goleta to the southern part. So it's just kind of this, kind of always dissipating. But they will on occasion come up towards the Cayo Real side, and that's why I think you're seeing it limited mostly to that side of the Cayo Real shopping center, because it's kind of this no man's land where there's not a lot of people that will go and check and operate down there, and so they're kind of insulated from. When they were on Maravilla, it was obvious. It was very, very, very visual. So. I think CityNet's been working those areas as well, and then over kind of by Goleta Beach, because there's sizable encampments have been over there as well, but it's just a lot of individuals, a lot of people choosing to be in those areas. So the biggest thing, and I think like for folks like Randy too, is just keeping an eye out there and letting people know if they start to see something again. Unfortunately, we don't have CityNet with 50 caseworkers to be out everywhere at all times. So if they're limited, they're trying to do as much as they can, but they can only take on certain number of clients at any given moment. So as long as we're aware of it and we see it, at least it gives us a shot to deal with it. But if we don't hear about it, that's the problem. The encampments start to get entrenched, they get bigger, they could become more dangerous. And so it's helpful to try to get a hold on them as quickly as possible.
Kristen, anything to share?
Sure. Let me jump in here just a little bit from the Chamber of Commerce. Most of you know all this, but we, as Jaime kind of talked about 2 years ago, we have gone to a couple of meetings about homelessness, but would not have ever had this high on our radar screen or program of work, except for that. I'm sure it's related to COVID. We began hearing from so many of our businesses that the largest threat to their business was no longer COVID, but the effects of homelessness, for their employees, for their business, for their customers, for themselves. And it became, obviously a crisis situation. And we've really appreciated, I think, this monthly wrap call. Well, first of all the work that the city is doing has been appreciative. We've been appreciative, but then having the outreach to businesses on the last Monday so that they know this is a place they can come and sort of just talk about what they're experiencing, make sure they get that connection to Sandu, or finding out how to work with the system here. I'm curious why I haven't had this since the last time I was on, about the ground rules about speaking in a certain way and being careful. I'm curious as to, did somebody abuse the privilege? Because my experience has been that every business I speak to has the utmost compassion, concern, and wants to know how to do the right thing and how to help with this. So I want to speak up for them and acknowledge that I have not experienced that kind of rudeness, but if you have, maybe that's why you had to start this.
No, let me just step in there. And the only reason why I do those ground rules now on the call is that we have had people on some of our other rap calls use language that was really inappropriate. And sometimes I don't know, if I don't know people who jump on the call, I don't know what's going to be shared. So my apologies. I'm not expecting people to jump on the call and do that. 99% of the people that join our calls are always respectful and helpful, and I really appreciate it. But sometimes, people have just jumped on with inappropriate names or sharing personal information. And rather than have that happen and me have to back in to try to change, try to alter it midstream, I try to put that up first now. My apologies.
No, it's okay. I'm glad I asked.
And that's also, if I can jump in, that's also, we have community members jumping on sometimes who have varying levels of understanding just around the issue of homelessness at all, who may be completely new to the issue altogether. So.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate Erica and Randy being on, because, it's hard to do this and speak up and say, hey, I got a problem. And, what do I do about it? Because we're all so new to it. I did want to just reemphasize that because of the crisis, the chamber is pretty involved now. And I appreciate Justin being on a lot of these calls. We go to we're probably more heavily involved in the downtown Santa Barbara rep calls because of the issues there on the waterfront. But in Goleta, the complaints that we had, I think they're all being addressed since the last time I was on. One is the encampment on the 101 that you can see on the southbound lane. I don't know if it's La Patera or it's the end of La Patera. It just seems like it's taking an awfully long time to get. I think the people are out, but it needs to be cleaned up. And I would just make sure that's still on somebody's list. I'm sure it is. Maravilla, of course, we watched that and we're very involved in that. And I was glad to hear the update today. Gersh Park, I know in a previous call, we had people on who talked about people camping in the bushes there. That may be resolved, and I'd be happy to hear it. And then I think at Haskell's that might be resolved. And if the gentleman who was living in his RV, we've been happy, pardon my cat, we've been happy to work with New Horizons, trying to help them find more parking lots. I learned a lot about, so, you know, that living in your car or RV is actually one of our fake bridge housing solutions, but it does work. And so we're trying to help with that. And then Calle Real, Erica, you're mentioning, in addition to what you're describing, we had hotspots described to us behind Best Western and Mechanics Bank. Again, I think you probably already on this. And then I was on one where we had an extensive conversation about Camino Real Marketplace. And I know all of this is being worked on. I bring them back up as our list because there's quite a lot going on in Goleta, unfortunately. I'll just make a couple more comments. I appreciate Jaime's conversation about housing in general. You know, the chamber, we've been almost rabid housing advocates for many years and advocating for housing at every level, from super low income all the way up to market rate. And we're very interested in dignity moves and the bridge housing solution that has been proposed as a way to bridge the gap between today and when we have more affordable housing available for all of us, including people experiencing homelessness. So I think perhaps with the Super 8, there's less emphasis on looking for a location for a Dignity Moves type bridge housing site. But if that were, but we're proponents of that, as it seems to have worked in a number of neighborhoods. I talked about New Horizons. Oh, and then the last thing is about the response directory. I think we helped get that moving in Santa Barbara pretty successfully. So I don't know where we are in the pipeline in Goleta, but the chamber can probably be a partner in getting that response directory circulated to businesses.
Thanks, Kristen. I think what we need to do, we have the draft document. I just need to work with Jaime and Shanna on some adjusted kind of context for the city. And I think we could use a lot of the same ones for our outreach partners, et cetera. And I want to thank you for the effort around safe parking. I met with a couple of funders yesterday trying to help them, trying to get more flexible funding for safe parking related to just allowing clients to get licenses, which is sometimes a barrier, not like insurance, which sometimes is a barrier for them to get into the program because they can't afford it. And I think we're going to see an uptick in our vehicular homeless numbers across the county. I talked with New Beginnings on last week, and they counted 102 vehicles in 2 hours. So if that gives you an idea of what we're looking at as far as vehicular homeless, just in 4 regions of Santa Barbara City. So I don't know what the Goleta numbers are going to be, but we know we have a large number of Goleta as well. So I think we need to have a strategy moving forward to help New Beginnings. And so you're a key part in trying to find some new lots for them. So I really appreciate your effort.
Yeah, Dustin's working closely. So talk to him anytime. And I'm sorry I said the wrong name, but yes.
Oh, that's all right.
You knew what I meant.
Dustin.
At least you didn't say Secure Horizons. That's an old HMO from the 90s, if anyone remembers. But no, the Dignity Moves, thanks for sharing that. That's been popping up discussion-wise in Goleta. I don't know where we would maybe even find that or be able to fund it, but it is good to know that the South Coast Chamber is in support. I think a lot of times there's assumptions about which groups would be and would not be, so that's helpful to know, and we'll keep that top of mind. We have been trying to look with New Beginnings to see how else we can, up their ability to serve more individuals in Goleta. Most recently, I think it was towards the end of December, maybe early January, they did share they did have some availability in Goleta. So we've been trying to target some areas. And this is all new to us, you know, in a way, like vehicular homeless, and how do you know if they're, you know, just coming through, or are they really day-to-day, you know, parts of the community? And, you know, getting people to want to accept help or be part of a kind of a formal program. That's I think something that's more new for city staff. Obviously, CityNet's dealt with it for years, and Chuck probably, and SBAC, but you know, it's kind of strange. We did the point in time count last week, and we're trying to offer people help, and they just kind of said, nah, no thanks, we're good. And I know it varies by individual, but you know, it was like 37 degrees that morning, and a person was totally happy not having to take anything, and wished us well, and you know, kept it moving. So I think it's really hard to understand unless you experience it or have been in it for a long time. Because to me, I was like, man, if I was in that spot, I'd take them up in a heartbeat. So maybe that's not the case for everybody.
Thanks, Jaime. Dustin, you have something to share, and you can close us out. And as we end the meeting, just thank you everyone for being on the call, and Randy and Erica will follow up with you related to your businesses and follow-up. Dustin, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is a question that's best directed at CityNet or not, but I mean, one main thing is, I'm trying to find the right words for this. But so in Old Town on Hollister, I feel like there, you know, I've heard things from businesses in the area, or even when I've been in the area myself, I've, you know, seen that there are quite a few individuals, and that there's sort of a, you know, I think some people are concerned that there's sort of a parallel, like, you know, it's not State Street, but that there is a similar kind of situation starting to arise there. And I know on these calls, we always talk a lot about the encampments and the, you know, different areas of the city, but I don't necessarily ever hear anything about, I'm not saying it's not happening, but I don't hear much about outreach directly in Old Town or on Hollister. And I'm just curious to get an update on that.
I can speak to that probably real quick. Yeah, to be honest, we haven't done as much outreach down there as we focused on more on the encampments. If there's particular individuals that are, you know, more visible than not, and you know, people want us to reach out to them, we'd be happy to. It was a few months back, but I did go to a auto shop. We'd gotten an email about, and we've been in that area definitely a lot. The Patterson bike path is a little further down, but we've been around there. And so, yeah, we'd be happy to spend more time down there, but kind of these past few months, we've been focusing more on the encampments along the freeways and different areas like that.
And I'll just share, Dustin, I've talked to some of the business owners down in that area, kind of by where that scuba shop is, kind of 7-Eleven. Some of them have actually just said, you know, those individuals that are experiencing homelessness, they don't really feel bad. They don't really feel the need to call the cops on them to remove them, right? And they actually have been kind of just letting them use, you know, the front areas of their businesses, especially if it's kind of off to the side. So it's kind of hard to, you know, go in there with a iron fist and start, you know, trying to move people if other people are being somewhat compassionate. So it's kind of this weird balance. I know you're talking about a couple of individuals. I know we've had folks at the coffee shop at, oh my God, it's escaping my name. Go there every week, but
Old Town.
Yes, Old Town Coffee. And they've had one individual that goes there regularly, will go in, kind of just yell inside the building and then walk out and leave. And it's kind of like for a 45-second interaction, they're kind of like, by the time I call the cops, you know, and get down here. But yeah, I know there's probably 3 or 4 individuals that people see up and down Hollister in that corridor. But again, it's if somebody calls it in and says they're doing something, there's no real crime against being homeless. I mean, it's a tough thing to deal with. But if they are doing something that's criminal or dangerous, then we do need to know. But again, we have some businesses that are actually kind of, you know, lending a hand and not kind of persecuting, for lack of a better term.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. And we'll follow up. Okay. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all.